So the NBA playoffs have just started. Obviously, this is going to bring up a lot of topics. And a topic I like to discuss every year is each playoff team's X factor. If you didn't know, a playoff team's X factor is basically a guy who's not like an all-star, one of really like the top 2 or 3 players on the team, but he's a guy who could determine whether or not his team wins the series, impact the series in a crazy way, even though he's not one of the top players. So in today's video, I'll be discussing each Eastern Conference playoff team's X factor. And yes, I know the playoffs already started, I'm kind of late. But before we get into the video, I ask you to drop a like on this video as it does help my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel if you want daily NBA content. Also, if you want to go over 3,000 subscribers, also drop a comment on this video as I do respond to all of my comments, and play that intro.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
For the number 1 seeded Miami Heat, I think their X factor has to be Victor Oladipo. If you didn't know, Oladipo just returned at the end of the regular season. If I'm being honest, he played really well, having a few 20-point games, even had a big 40-point game. I think Oladipo has really contributed to this team. In an interview, Eric Spoelstra kind of hinted at the fact that Oladipo might not be in the playoff rotation. Honestly, I don't think that's the right choice because I think he can bring more to the table than Duncan Robinson's inconsistent shooting. I think Oladipo is a guy who could provide the Heat with quality buckets in a series like this. The Heat are going to need to score against Atlanta, who has one of the best offenses in the league. And I think if Oladipo could step up and be that 3rd or 4th scorer for this team, it will drastically increase their chances of winning. For the number 2 seed Boston Celtics, I think their X factor has to be Al Horford. We all heard the tragic news of Robert Williams getting injured, and that means that Al Horford is going to step up and be their starting center. In the regular season, Robert Williams is one of the best defensive players in the league because of his elite paint protection, and that led to the Celtics being like the best defense in the league. Now they're going to need Al Horford to step up and try and give you some of what Robert Williams gave you if they want to win this series. And I think Horford's not a terrible replacement. He's not as good of a shot blocker, but he's still a solid defender who can protect the rim decently, switch on the pick and roll, and he's also able to shoot on offense, which is something that Williams wasn't able to do. But at the same time, Horford is not catching no alley-oops like that. But overall, Horford could play some solid defense and help Boston out, and hopefully help them keep their elite defense, because they're going to really need some of that elite defense going against the high-octane Brooklyn Nets offense. For the number 3 seed Milwaukee Bucks, I think their X factor is Jrue Holiday. And I know Jrue Holiday is not your usual X factor. He's a top 3 player on the Bucks easily. Only reason I put him here is because we all know how inconsistent he was last year in the playoffs. And in this series, he's going to be the primary defender on Zach LaVine or DeMar DeRozan. Obviously, those are the Bulls' best scorers, so his defense is going to be really important. Then on offense, they're going to need him to be like their 3rd scorer and occasionally their 2nd scorer. And he's going to have to like hit his shots. But overall, I'm really confident the Bucks win this series. When it comes to the Philadelphia 76ers, I think their X factor has to be Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris has become one of the most disliked players in the league because of his overpaid contract. But he's still a solid starter in the league. He's a guy who's capable of scoring 20 points. We all know Joel Embiid's going to step up. We all know James Harden should help out in some way. Hopefully he doesn't choke, but there is a chance, obviously. But he can't be the X factor. He's still a top 15 player in the league. We all saw how Tyrese Maxey went crazy in game 1. And I think Tobias Harris is someone who needs to step up. If he plays good in the series, it drastically increases the chance of the Sixers winning. He's a guy who can just give them 20 points, and he's a guy who should be taking advantage when Durant is double teaming Joel Embiid and James Harden. If he steps up in a series like this, it will be really hard for the Raptors to win. For the Raptors, in my opinion, I think their X factor has to be OG Anunoby. He just came back from an injury. Game 1, he looked absolutely fantastic, having 20 points. Anunoby is really important because he's a guy who can give you 20 points. They could get that out of him. It would really help their chances, and we saw him do that in game 1. And in game 1, the Raptors' problem was their offense. Not their offense, it was that their defense was just giving up way too much points, and it just wasn't being as aggressive as it was in the regular season. But also, OG Anunoby is probably going to be the guy primarily matched up on James Harden, especially if Scottie Barnes is going to be out for the future. So they're going to need him to play really good defense on James Harden, as good defense as you capably can on James Harden, who's one of the best scorers in the league. So if OG produces in this series on offense and defense, obviously that will really help the Raptors' chances of winning. The X factor for the Chicago Bulls, in my opinion, definitely has to be Nikola Vucevic. I know Vucevic is like the third best player, but he's been really inconsistent this season. And if the Bulls want to have a chance to make the series competitive, they're going to need Vucevic to like play really well. Going against the Bucks, one of the best defenses in the league and one of the best offenses, the Bucks are going to put a lot of pressure on guys like DeRozan and LaVine. Vucevic is also going to be obviously going to be the recipient of a lot of that pressure. You just got to take advantage and score, especially in the pick and roll, pick and pop. We need him to go back to his Orlando Magic days if the Bulls want to win. Also, we can't just have like an average series averaging 15 points being inefficient for a center. They need him to play like an all-star, be dominant in the post. He's definitely capable of doing it. Also, in this series, his defense is gonna be really important because he's gonna be the main rim protecting for the team. Obviously, the Bucks have Giannis Antetokounmpo, the best paint scorer in the league, so they just have to try and contain him. But if I'm being honest, I don't think Giannis fears Vucevic at all. For the Brooklyn Nets, I think their X factor has to be Ben Simmons, who is going to return at some point in the series. I think the series is going to go very long, go in the distance. So that means Ben Simmons will still be able to make an impact, and I think he make a huge impact. The way I'm thinking is if this series is tied at 2 games apiece, something like that, then Ben Simmons comes back. Then they can finally get a really good defender on either Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown. Ben Simmons could definitely slow down one of those guys and help the Nets win the series. That's the type of impact he can make, and that's why I think he's the X factor. If he's able to play in this series, then I would give the Brooklyn Nets like the clear advantage. But if you want me to name someone who's not named Ben Simmons to be the X factor, I'll go with Bruce Brown. We saw last year in the playoffs he was capable of having big games, and he's probably the best defender on this team outside of Ben Simmons. To name the Atlanta Hawks X factor, it has to be Onyeka Okongwu. You might be wondering why it's him, but the reason it's him is because Clint Capella will be missing most of the series. And that means Okongwu will be asked to do a lot of the things Capella has done, and I think he can do those things, but just at a slightly worse level. But if you've actually been paying attention to the Hawks this season, Okongwu, when he was given the opportunity to start, has had some really big games. In the games he has started, he averaged like 10.7 rebounds, 2 blocks. That's like somewhat what Capella was giving you, and he's had just some big dominant games. But overall, they just need him to be the recipient of a lot of Trae Young's great passes in the pick and roll and stuff like that. If he could do that, it would really help the Hawks' slim chance of winning this series. I shouldn't say slim chance, but the Hawks are definitely underdogs in the series, and they're going to need him to step up. If he's not playing great defense, and if he's not able to finish off Trae Young's great passes, the Hawks' offense is just going to be totally messed up. Anyways, guys, that's it for the video. Let me know who you think each team's X factor is. Drop a like on the video if you want me to make a next part. Subscribe to my channel. I'm gonna make daily NBA content every day. Also, I'm just gonna go with 3,000 subscribers. We're really close. Also, drop a comment on this video. I'll respond to most of my comments. And play that intro.